Hi everyone. Today there is a lot of press around about vaccines. So I just wanted to do a little piece today about vaccines just to clear up some of the potential confusion that might be around. And I guess something that I want to talk about that's underlying all of this is a lot of fear. There is a lot of fear around at the moment, and that is not inappropriate. It's just something that we really want to keep a monitor on personally to make sure that it's not getting out of control. So one little reminder about fear that I really like to use from time to time is FEAR, fear is false evidence appearing real. So just keep this in the back of your mind when you're consuming media, particularly even just the nightly news. Just know that a lot of that is really curated content. And there's also a lot of fear-mongering content in social media as well, but there's also some extremely informative content out there. So you really just have to be your own detective in many ways, and hopefully tune into good points of resource like my channel here. So vaccines, everyone is on tenterhooks waiting for this COVID-19 vaccine. Now, the thing with vaccines is vaccines are great after the fact. So they're not a cure, they are a preventative after we've already been exposed to the particular pathogen that we're trying to vaccinate against. So one thing with this is that to a degree we had to actually get this bug, this virus, in order to be able to formulate a vaccine, and that's why the process isn't very quick either. Because the vaccine itself, it's not a silver bullet. They never are in many ways. They actually require our body to be the solution. So all a vaccine does is it provides a very, very small signature to the body that tells the immune system that something needs to be actioned, that's been introduced. And it's actually the immune system that does all the work, your immune system. Our immune system that has evolved and refined over centuries of our life on this planet. It doesn't necessarily always work as quickly as we would like, but honestly, it's the best defense we've got. And without a functioning immune system, a vaccine is really just something in a syringe that will not really do anything until your immune system gives it a purpose and actually makes it serve us. So vaccines have to be studied and developed over long periods of time because there's all different types of vaccines out there. Sometimes the virus or the pathogen is in a very, very minute dose, but in live form, and these are live vaccines. They're not as safe, and sometimes they are a dead form of the virus. It also doesn't help that viruses and other pathogens will actually change form. So this is a really good example with the flu vaccine. So particularly in the last 5 or so years, the flu vaccine has become almost like a vitamin shot out in the community. It's really pushed on people, and I think sometimes the information is not very accurate that's shared with people. The flu vaccine each year is our best guess. It's our best guess of what flu strain we may be faced with in that particular flu season. And that's really all it is. So the other thing that concerns me is when we start talking about enforcing vaccines and removing people's choice of whether they want to have a vaccine or not. Now, no doubt over history, vaccines have been an incredibly important development in our health and our defense against pathogens and disease. And there's been some incredibly important vaccines developed, the polio vaccine, for example, and many others. But I like to be able to choose what vaccines I feel are appropriate for me. For example, many years ago, I went and traveled to Thailand, and I was going to be working in a medical clinic in the north of Thailand. Now, there was a chance that I could get a pretty horrible disease called Japanese encephalitis. And that disease can be fatal. It can also be quite debilitating. So I decided, yeah, that's something that I want to get vaccinated against because I'm not actually willing to accept the consequences of that particular disease. Now, in the case of COVID-19, a lot of the information out there is focusing on deaths, and yes, there have been many, but a lot of the numbers aren't looking at the survival. So do yourself a favor and actually Google, have a look at the survival rates of this virus. They are significant. The deaths are also significant and they're incredibly sad, but in the vast majority of cases, there's been an underlying reason for those people being affected so devastatingly by this virus. And that's because that little magic thing that we have inside us that makes a vaccine do its job, our immune system, is not necessarily functioning adequately in these individuals that are losing their life to COVID-19. There are always exceptions, but we have to look at the broad stroke majorities. The people that are mostly being affected have a rundown immune system, whether it's obvious or it may not be so obvious. For example, in New York City, the largest deaths have been in the Black and Hispanic communities in poorer areas of the city. Now, you might think a lot of these people might be young and robust, but the reality is they're not necessarily healthy. Many of them live in relative food deserts, meaning that they either can't afford or do not have access to fresh, healthy food, vital for a good, healthy immune system and healthy body overall. There's also been some evidence showing that people on a particular type of high blood pressure medication, people that are on anti-inflammatories, tend to do worse with COVID-19. These are not accidents. These are just showing us that there's underlying factors that are reducing our body's ability to fight this off. But for many of us, our body's ability, our immune system to fight off this virus, like many other things that we've faced over centuries of evolution, is within our control in many, many cases. So right now, what can you be doing for your immune system while you're waiting for this vaccine? Get some sun. Yeah, I'm a doctor telling you to get out and get some sun. Another thing where fear has been misplaced. Skin cancer does happen, but we need sun. There is a reason we're on a planet filled with sunlight. We need it for vitamin D, and vitamin D is integral to a good functioning immune system. I was out walking this morning, and here where I live in Australia, it's autumn. It's a wonderful time of year to get some sunshine because it's not at its full intensity, particularly before sort of 11 a.m. and after 3 p.m. in the afternoon. But I saw a lady walking around with long sleeves, long pants, a scarf, a hat, sunglasses, and I was doing my best to get my arms out in the light this morning. 15 to 20 minutes of forearm exposure each day is fantastic to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D. Otherwise, start taking a supplement. It's crucial for your immune system if you're not happy to be out in the sun. Also, what are we fueling our bodies with? What are we putting in? The inputs are really important. So what you're putting in has got to be the best fresh produce, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, plant-based food that you can get into your body. And how is that food being assimilated? We need to have a healthy gut. So for example, just say you've got some petrol that you're putting into your car and you've got a big hole in your fuel tank in your car. That's like if we've got a leaky gut or a poor functioning digestive system. Then whatever food we're putting in is not going to be fully utilized by our body and by our immune system. So gut health is really, really important at the moment. So take a look into your gut health and make sure that if you probably don't have a very healthy gut, which many of us walking around don't have a healthy gut and we may not realize it, try to avoid the more allergenic type foods, the more inflammatory type foods, which will cause more problems if you do not have good gut health. Some examples of these are gluten, refined wheat products, bleached flours, eggs, dairy. These are some examples. Just try and eat less of them. I'm not saying don't eat none, just eat less. I find it quite amusing that at the moment McDonald's is trying to be really helpful by providing milk and white bread, English muffins in its drive-through as staples for people to be eating. Couldn't be further from the truth. Don't put that shit in your bodies. It's as simple as that. And also with your fuel tank, you've got to make sure that you're putting the right fuel in. If your car runs on petrol, you put diesel in, that car's not going to work. So it's another little analogy that you can keep in mind that might make you make some better choices about the inputs you're putting in. And finally, my last little point, there's many more I could make, but get rest. It is so important right now. It's a tough time to necessarily be getting good regular sleep, particularly if you're in a weird schedule at home because you're in quarantine or isolation or you're social distancing. Make sure that you try and have a schedule, a routine. Try and get up at a normal early time every day. Make sure there's movement in your day. Get natural light early. Start to turn all the electric devices off later so you can have a good sound sleep, because rest is so important for our immune system. It's when all the magic happens. It's when our body goes into rest and repair. So take all these things on board, guys. A vaccine is not around the corner. It will be great when it arrives and we can choose if we want to put that into our bodies and prevent this disease from affecting us potentially in the future. But in the meantime, do what you can. Support the immune system. That's your underlying superpower in the battle against COVID-19. Take care, stay safe.